Thank you for coming to the call today. This is the Turn on Your Personal Mastery or Release Your Inner Hero. My name is Jung, and I'm very happy to, in fact, I'm a little nervous, but I'm very excited, in fact, to be hosting today's webinar. This is the first time that as a coach, I am hosting a webinar. So both a little scared, but also very excited too. So I'm very happy to have that today. And thank you for joining. Thank you for showing up. And I invite you as well to, have your cameras on if you haven't already. Absolutely very, I think it's good to sort of show up. But we often spend a lot of our days just in our own little offices and not really connecting with other people. And it's great to sort of see ourselves here. So thank you for doing that. And I invite you to open your cameras. I also invite you during the space of this 1 hour webinar today is to show up and play full out. And I firmly believe that what you get out of what you invest your time into, the more you invest, the more you play full out, the more you get from it, right? If you're too passive, then you only get the minimum. So I invite you to play full out. In today's session, which will be recorded, I would invite you to, put into chat comments. I'll be asking you questions on reflections and things. So I invite you to do that. And this is the setting today. So I would like to just basically ask you to put in a chat, where are you calling in from today? I know you've, some of you, maybe it's in the evening, some of you it's in the morning even, and some of you it's midday, like it is for me in the UK. So let me know in the chat where you're calling from today. Amazing. Netherlands, your NA in UK, welcome. And of course, Cyprus, Germany, in Dubai, hello, Ola. Great to see you. And also, yes, Staten Island, New York. Yes, Rhonda, hi. Brilliant. Great. So today's session is called it Turn on Your Personal Mastery, Release Your Inner Hero. And it means a lot to me, this hot topic of personal mastery. It's for that reason that I have named my coaching company after it. And I believe that all of us, if we have more personal mastery in our lives, that is being able to lead ourselves, we can release that inner hero that we have, that we are free from, not so much free from challenges, our own challenges, but also that we can actually go beyond them in order to achieve, in order to do things that, well, we've dreamed of doing, right? Having that better life for ourselves. That's great. So I'm just going to share my slides and just give me a moment. Actually, can you make sure I share them first? Okay, great. With your thumbs up, you can see my slides. Brilliant. So who am I? Well, I said my name is Jung. My full name is actually Jung Wing Wan. I am a BBC, which means some people call it as a British-born Chinese, born in England, grew up in England long enough to have the British accent, no doubt, that you can hear. And I have been running my coaching business for over almost 2 years now. I'm very happy to have done that. I have previously been in 25 years or so in the pharmaceutical industry, working in a very sort of corporate and scientific type of role to do with drug development. And in terms of interests, I really love the martial arts. This is why the word mastery speaks to me particularly. And I like to run. I also have an aptitude or an interest in learning languages. I absolutely love that. And also at weekends, on the Sundays, I serve at the church as an elder and also as a chairman, running some of the administrative activities. And I'm here to Yeah, because I love coaching. I love helping people to grow and to develop their own awareness on their own journey and how they can become better at what they do. And before I start off in terms of the, on the journey of personal mastery during this next hour or so, by sharing a quote, one of my favorite quotes, which comes from the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu. Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. And I'd like to invite you to consider this, not just at face value in terms of the words and what it says, but for yourself. If you could master yourself, what would you be able to do? So if I say to myself, if I could master myself, I would feel less nervousness at speaking in front of people. If I could master myself, I could climb the highest mountain in Europe. If I could master myself, I would help others to do the same. So I invite you just to spend a moment, and maybe you can enter it into the chat. If you ask yourself, if I could master myself, I would, and then add what it is that you would be able to do. And feel free to put that in the chat so I can see. Okay. You enter those into the chat so I can see. That'd be great. Right, and it says, have more confidence in the value you bring to my clients. Brilliant. Petra, you say, think and play bigger. Oliver, great to see you, Oliver. Try to get wiser and hold my QI better. Amazing. And Phaedra says, if I could master myself, I could help more people become happier. Very noble. Nikos, I'm a friend. Commit to long-term projects without the fear that I'll get bored soon. And Rhonda says, start seeing clients. Amazing. And Peter, hi Peter, bring more peace in my life without getting overwhelmed. So getting overwhelmed so often. Brilliant. And Ola says, starting to charge clients is something I'm finding hard, although I have to do it as a requirement of my coaching training. Absolutely, I'm with you there. And Rosemary, hi Rosemary, I would like to play the piano and saxophone and commit to more patience. Amazing, amazing. Isn't it amazing if you have that conversation with yourself in terms of what if I could master myself, then I could, or I would, and amazing possibilities start to happen. Great, thank you for sharing that all. And let me go on to the next slide. And Grace, you say, start selling services and products without being distracted. Absolutely amazing. Yes. So in today's webinar, what to expect? I will be sharing, I look forward to sharing with you a clear blueprint for how you can develop more self-leadership so that you can lead yourself and to make decisions so that you get better outcomes. I will share as well on relating to self-confidence, how you can boost your self-confidence fast to face up to the challenges that you face, that you have in front of you, and achieve more. And then in terms of purpose, how finding your purpose can give you more direction and fulfillment in your life. Aren't these important things that we all could do more with? And I talked about personal mastery. And as you can probably tell, personal mastery is something that's very personal to me. It's something that I strive to not just work in, but also live according to. And I believe that how we do one thing is how we do everything. And that sense of doing things with that consistency throughout is very important for me. And so I want to share with you a personal hero of mine when it comes to the topic of personal mastery. I'm sure when we talk about the ideas of personal mastery or the concepts within, or self-leadership, you'll look up to certain leaders who lead, who are able to achieve great things, and they hold themselves with great ambitions and activity. So my hero is actually Miyamoto Musashi. Who of you have heard of this person before? Probably not many, and that's probably why I chose him, because to me, Musashi, he represents many things. He's probably not the sort of person that most people will think of when it comes to personal mastery, but to me, he's very much so. He was the author of a book called The Book of Five Rings. He talks about strategy, he talks about fighting. The art of war is something that was very much a big influence for him. He also developed the sword fighting technique using two swords, whereas traditionally, a lot of people who fought, the samurai, for example, in Japan, they would fight using one sword. In his youth, Musashi, who lived in the 16th century, he dreamt of becoming a samurai, and then later decided this was not right for him. And he pursued a life of bettering himself. He did something that was very, in his life, very unconventional. He challenged people in bouts, challenging sword masters, with the intention of becoming better in himself, better at what he did. Now, I'm not sort of saying here that I recommend in Musashi and following the same footsteps of picking battles. No, not at all. But it's learning from someone who's so focused on one particular point of improving their own life, improving themselves, improving their technique, improving their sort of standing with such relentless effort and focus. That's something that I find truly inspiring. That's what I see from Musashi. This actual book cover is from the book I'm actually reading at the moment. It's a novel written in the early 20th century, basically a fictionalized account. And you'll see Musashi often being portrayed in many Japanese dramas. He was such a national hero for the Japanese. So what about me? Where do I come into this? Well, before I start, I'll ask, who's a runner? Who runs? Who's a runner? Right, I see Phaedra, right? And then Nikos as well. Yeah.
Me. I do.
Right. So who was that? Sorry, I couldn't quite see.
Sorry, it's Rosemary.
Oh, Rosemary, yes, indeed. Yes, you have amazing, all those trophies that you showed the other day of your marathon exploits. Amazing, thank you.
Thank you.
And so this is a picture of me clearly taken a while ago, many moons ago, right? When I had hair. And so this is me after having run the London Marathon. Rosemary, you will recognize the medal, no doubt, the actual colors. And what you see here is me after having completed a marathon. This is actually my second one. But what you don't know is that less than a year and a half before that, this same person had broken their leg. This person had gone through such a hard time at home because it was told by the doctor to rest, to allow the leg to heal. You see, as someone who is very active, I like to run. I like to go out and walk in parks and things. And I've been training some in Kung Fu, in martial arts, a bit of sparring practice with my friends. And that was when I broke my leg. When the doctor told me that I needed to spend 6 weeks at home, 6 weeks to recover, you know what that felt like? That felt like a prison sentence. I just didn't know what to do. How could I even endure 6 weeks of being at home, not being able to go out? It's enough even to spend 1 day at home, let alone for me at the time to spend 6 weeks. You see, I had that cast of my foot. It's on my right leg. And during the first 2-3 weeks, when I tried to get up out of my seat, you know what? That pain was unbearable. It was so unbearable, in fact, that you know what? There was no painkiller that I could take that was available that could take that pain away from me. When I got up, the swelling in my leg just intensified with all the fluid going down into my leg. And that pain was excruciating. The only way that I could manage that pain was by breathing. That's all I could do. That's all I could do. Every time that I tried to get up, I tried to get up out of my seat. But you know, what I realized, in fact, the problem wasn't the broken leg. That the doctor said, given my fitness, would heal in 6 weeks. The bone would heal very quickly. But you know, it revealed to me what was really broken inside. You see, what was broken for me was pretty much everything else. My work, although I worked hard, I didn't seem to get much recognition. I didn't know quite how to do things in order to make a difference at work. I came across as being confident, but inside, I wasn't. I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know so many things that I perhaps now take for granted. And I also, you know what? I realized I didn't really have any friends. I knew people. Of course, I know people. I knew people. The people who I trained with in martial arts. But, you know, during that 6 weeks, none of my friends, none of them called me to see how I was. None of them. So I felt abandoned. And you know what? I really felt sorry for myself. And in that darkness, which really went dark, and I mean dark, I mean, there were thoughts I had, not nice thoughts, where I wanted to take myself away from them. You probably know what I mean. And then that realization came. There's me sitting around at home, hoping, expecting people to help me. But you know what? There was that truth that came up, which was the only person that could help me was none other than me. Only I could help myself. Only I could, in a sense, stand up for myself, to push those boundaries, to not accept the status quo, and to go onwards. And you know what? I started reading a lot to do with self-help, self-development, you name it, leadership, all the books I could handle, and studied how to be a better version of myself. And over time, what I learned, I shared. Not because I was, running a particular workshop or anything like that, or even giving talks. Just by being around people that I knew, that I worked with, I started sharing what I knew. And so, roll on many years later, here I am with a better sense of personal mastery, of being able to lead myself, to help myself forward, to propel myself upwards and onwards. Some of you have been with me for recently on my journey, how to got to here, to this first webinar. And it wasn't easy. But you know what? I love the journey I'm making. It is hard. It is tough. It's never ending. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not a Monday to Friday. It's every waking moment. And I love it. So hence my journey to now relating to personal mastery. How's that landing for you? Anything that you heard from me in my story that resonated somehow, that spoke to that part of you that said, maybe that was me. Maybe that was someone I used to be. Let me know in the chat. How is it for everyone? My goodness. Yeah, so if you've got any comments you'd like to share on how this is landing for you and particular points that really struck you, then let me know. Put them in the chat. I invite you. Great. Okay. See any comments, so let's move on. All right. Okay, so you've seen a sense of what it is. What is personal mastery? For me, I define it as the practice of becoming that ever better version of yourself with every day. So it's always there, always a need to keep going. And I like what you say there, Peter. It's a decision you take for yourself a decision that you take yourself. And I like you always love that word that you used, Peter, seriously. So this is something that is very important to me. And I hope you can see it as well. You can feel it perhaps in the way that I'm coming across today. Personal mastery is a pursuit. It's a pursuit of mastery, being able to better. It also is leading a life with purpose. A purpose as in there's always a meaning, a reason to move forward. It's not just playing second class to anything else that is happening. There's an intention behind the mastery, behind getting more mastery in life. And so as I've been reflecting over these past years relating to personal mastery, I developed what I call a blueprint, right? A blueprint for that self-leadership, to actually lead oneself. And here it is, I share with you. And at the central component is that self-awareness. I think self-awareness is fundamental for personal mastery. And what does that mean? That means taking more awareness of the thoughts that you think. So as you can see in the bottom right quadrant there of the central circle, the emotions that you are feeling, the words that you say, and the actions that you take. So having that self-awareness is absolutely critical, I think, as a foundation for more personal mastery. Better awareness, that self-awareness enables you to make empowered decisions, okay? Decisions relating to your personal growth. You'll make better decisions for sure on other things, but starting off with personal growth, what it is that you want to grow in. And also with these other pillars you see around, resilience, we're going to cover today, self-confidence, we'll cover as well, purpose. You'll see that development in one particular pillar will help you grow in others. So it's not like you just develop something to do with just self-confidence and it won't affect you. It operates in silo with it on its own. No, by developing that, you also have you develop more benefits in other areas too, relating to growth. And as well, this is a practice. The practice of personal mastery is always for continuous growth. Although I say, for example, that you develop self-awareness, it's something that continues. Just because maybe I'm a little more self-aware than I used to be, doesn't mean I stop where I am. Because in order to keep growing, that self-awareness is something that's important to us. I'd like to then move on, then we explain a bit more, we'll explore what self-awareness is. And I define it as being an ability that we all have of monitoring our own thoughts, our emotions, our communication, and our actions. I'd like to invite you to perhaps rate yourself. How would you rate yourself in this area of self-awareness? How self-aware are you? Like from a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is not self-aware, very self-aware, to 10 being the ideal level of self-awareness. How would you rate yourself? And you let me know in the chat if you feel comfortable with it. Okay, 8, 7.5. Good. 8.5, 8, 7, yeah, 7.8. I love the precision there in the decimal points. 6.5. Yeah, that's a good point. What does a 10 look like? Yeah, absolutely. And it depends. There is no universal standard measure of what that looks like, but it's what your ideal could be. And that may require some additional reflection. And I invite you now to ask yourself this question and maybe complete this sentence. With better awareness, I could. So let me start with better awareness, I could develop myself much more quickly. With better awareness, I would be able to communicate so much better with my colleagues or my clients. So I invite you to spend a moment just to how you complete that sentence for yourself. With better awareness, I could ... What would that be? And if you feel comfortable with it, share with the chat as before. Amazing. Thanks, Grace. So handling emotions within minutes. Trust yourself more. Thank you, Annie. Amazing. Great. So with that thought, I'd like then to bring you forward to share a little clip. Now, this is a 3-minute clip, video clip. It's on YouTube. There's not much sound. So if the sound doesn't come across on this platform, not to worry. It's more of a visual clip for you to see. And I'd like to, I think it explores some of the aspects relating to self-awareness and maybe help you to reflect on what your self-awareness is like and what it could actually achieve. So here we go. And hopefully you can all see this when I share this.
It's not playing, Jung.
Okay, right. Sorry about that. Let me just give it a check.
Maybe, maybe you could share the link like one of the other participants said.
Yes, yeah, sure. Give me, it's quite funny because I just was testing this out just earlier before this call and it was fine. Okay, I'll share this now in the chat. Okay, you click on that and then watch that. Okay, so hopefully you've seen it. And okay. So you should have ended up here. So maybe you could share on the chat what you actually observed. What was a key point you took from this particular video clip about self-awareness? Okay, can't see any comments just yet. Okay, no comments in just yet. So a couple of things I observed is, I mean, it's clear that this man there's two versions of him. There's the version before he's, okay, he's still watching it. There's two versions of it. There's a version of him as you see him walking into the art college, and then there's a version of him that, you know, after he's splashed water on his face. Not to say that splashing water is a key to this, but it's just a transition point in the actual video. Okay, let me know what you see from the video clip. Okay. So Rhonda says, thank you, Rhonda. He wasn't centered or in awareness at the beginning. Oh, very well observed. And it says he was nervous before he got his certificate and wasn't thinking about his behavior. Yep, very good. And just to say, there are no right answers here. It's just what you observe that's important here. Yep, so he was angry, Nico says, and then happy after he washed his hands, changed jacket. Yep. Oliver, as you say, you can't see in self-awareness. Yep. And then change of clothes. Yep. Grace says he was in his own bubble, not connected with the environment. Yep. Great. Thank you for sharing those. I mean, you can see a difference in terms of the outcome, right? He went in for this interview in the first instance, and it didn't end well for him there. But then afterwards, in the second half, he clearly got a certificate. There are a few things I observe, and it's quite interesting. Like, for example, where the second time, he goes he actually knocks on the door before he enters, right? Before, in the first one, he just walks straight in. And also interesting, the way he looks at himself in the mirror is quite different too, in between the two halves. He clearly as well, with better self-awareness in the second bit, he actually, well, he acknowledges the lady who's cleaning, right? That's a big difference. But it's interesting, and maybe this is like a way of, for me, I sense that it's a way of how we hold ourselves. How aware are we, and how aware of the impact that we have on others? How do we affect each other by just being around? Great. Let's move on. So some of the benefits then of self-awareness, we're able to make better decisions. We have an improved ability to manage our actions, our words. We also have the improved ability to manage our own thoughts and emotions, or at least how we respond to them. We show better empathy towards others. We become more effective learners. And also, we become better leaders of ourselves and of other people. Absolutely, Gemma. Yes, we see a change in this man's consciousness. Yes. Thank you for sharing, Gemma. Thank you for that. So let's just think in the interest of time. So just a quick exercise here, very quickly. So I'd like to ask you to basically center yourself. I'm going to do a quick breathing exercise and then talk you through an exercise here. So I'd like you to, where you're seated, you may be seated or standing. If you're seated, then if you sit down, and you might like to close your eyes. Be aware of where you sat, your feet in contact, or your shoes, whether on contact with the floor. Your back is relaxed. It's upright, but not bolt upright. It's relaxed. You feel the weight being supported by the spine. And your shoulders are relaxed. Your neck is upright. Your head is resting nicely on your neck, so it's not leaning forward or back. I'd like you to cast your mind back to a moment earlier today, perhaps, where you were at work or with your family, whatever that might be that you remember. And just think of how you were in that moment. What were the thoughts, a key thought that came to your mind? What were the emotions that you were feeling? What were the words or type of words and the tone of voice that you were using when you communicated? And what were the things, the actions that you were doing? And what was the outcome of that moment? Not to label what the outcome was, whether it was good or bad, just what it was. And think of how that outcome could have been better if you were to be able to replay that time. What would you do differently? What words or tone would you speak with? And how would you better maybe respond to the actual emotions that you were experiencing? And what type of thoughts would you prefer to have? I'd like then to breathe, continue breathing. And when you have a moment, when you're ready, you open your eyes and back in the room. How's things so far for you all? Hope you're doing well. Hope it's okay. Hope it's getting you value from this. Great. Let's move on. So I'm going to cover then self-confidence. A lot of us perhaps struggle with this. I define this as the trust in our own judgment and our ability to be able to communicate effectively. And I'll ask you quickly maybe to rate yourself in terms of how your self-confidence is. Between 1 to 10, how would you rate it? 10 being your own ideal, and then 1 being the lowest with a very little self-confidence. So let me know in the chat what your self-confidence, how you rate it. An 8, says Oliver. A 2, says Rosemary. 6.9. Okay, thank you, Sue. 7s, 8s. Great. And I'd like to ask you, what could you do with better self-confidence? So if you ask yourself, with better self-confidence, I could. So with better self-confidence, I could speak a bit more clearly. With better self-confidence, I could speak to more people without feeling fearful. So maybe just to spend a moment to add, what would you be able to do with better self-confidence? Thank you, Phaedra. With better self-confidence, you get more clients. Absolutely. Peter says, be more clear and explicit about your needs. Nico says, be more intentional, organized towards bigger goals. Ray says, take more actions to get clarity. Brilliant. Thank you for sharing all that. So briefly on my self-confidence story, I'll just share something here. Who of you likes extreme sports? Right? Be it skiing, be it something that most people don't like doing, you know, something that scares you a little bit, something that excites you. No? Okay. Well, let's share. For me, again, extreme sport I have is this. I put my hand up. Some of you probably laugh because you've probably seen me do this. I just put my hand up, I volunteer. And the scary thing is, what is extreme about it? It's because sometimes I don't know what I'm going to say next. Right? And I see you, Nikos, you probably identify this a bit. Sometimes I just don't know what's going to happen next, but my hand is up. It's a reflex action. This picture you see here was taken quite not long ago, a few months ago at a conference. And the story I want to talk about is much further back than that. Early on in my career, I was attending a town hall at the company I worked, and there were 2,000 people in attendance, right, on site. This is before the time of video conferencing, of Zoom. Can you remember a time like that? And the CEO gave an update on how the company had performed during that year. And it came to Q&A. So what happened? My hand came up. I had a question to ask. I thought I had a question. So I grabbed hold of the microphone and I asked a question. I asked, well, this is a pharmaceutical company I was working with. So can you tell us about these other products? These are the products that I was working on, in that they were the vaccines, which is in a pharmaceutical company. And you know what? The CEO, he said, well, Jung, the reason I didn't speak about those other products is because they were not highly performing. So quite frankly, Jung, he said from his stage, he said, Jung, you have to work harder. In front of 2,000 people. They all laughed. They all laughed at me, right? I was assaulted from all sides by this emotion. These people are laughing at me. That was not great. I was feeling smaller and smaller and smaller. My heart was pounding like this, like crazy, right? I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. And after I realized I was still holding on to that microphone, and I found my voice again. And I threw a question back to the CEO. I said there were challenges with the business. I said that he was well aware of. I said that there were a lot of good that comes from those vaccines in terms of global healthcare. There's a lot of good in that the company does, but he chose not to talk about them. It required a huge amount of strength for me to get there, to ask that question again back at him. And then we moved on. Now, I was fearing for my job, not my life, but my job. He could have fired me there and then if he chose to. Now, it would have been great. But you know what? 2 weeks later, I'm in the office one afternoon, and I happen to look up from my desk, from my computer. And there he is, the CEO. He just walks by. And then as I looked up, his eyes saw me. We locked eyes. And you know what? I nodded at him and he nodded at me in recognition. I was the guy who asked him that awkward question. And I was still there. I held on to my job. So for me, what's the learning here is that confidence is from trying, it's from doing no matter what, even if it feels horrible. But you know what? It became an extreme sport. So whenever I'm in the company of a CEO giving a presentation, my hand goes up to ask a question. I have to say that my experiences since that event have been not as bad, I have to say. So hence, confidence is something that one can develop. I'll move on very quickly now. So there are benefits to self-confidence, clearly. You know, you trust yourself to do what you say what you would do. You face up to your challenges. And those are not just you, only you have challenges. Everyone has challenges. No matter if you're a high performer, no matter if you're a CEO, no matter what, everyone has their challenges. And the key thing is that you face up your challenges. You're also able to communicate with effectiveness and impact. And as well, what's great here is that you can support others to develop more self-confidence. I think we have much time for visualization exercise, but I'd maybe like to sort of ask you to consider, with better self-confidence, what could you do? I'd invite you to spend a moment after this call to note down what it is that you would improve, what it is that you could do with better self-confidence, and actually run through your mind that event, and then run through your mind again that event, but with, if you could do something a bit differently. So for example, if you were in a meeting, you're leading a meeting, or maybe like take example here. I'm going to be playing back how I actually run in this seminar today, this webinar, and how could I handle better that little technical issue where I couldn't play that video? Could I handle it better with more self-confidence? And that's what I could do, right? Think about how could I play this? What could I have said? What could I pivot? How could I have pivoted to make this work for you and as best I can? So something to think about. So I suppose we'll move on. In terms of purpose, now, this is important because having a sense of meaning in our life is very important, because we can be doing better things for ourselves and we can be more effective. And that's my story, you know, in a way of I become more effective at what I do. I can run meetings. I know my technical aspects. I know what's, you know, I have lots of knowledge. But if there is no direction, then what's the point? Where are we headed to? It becomes a journey where we just do one day and the next day, the same thing, the next day, the same thing, and so on. And if we keep on doing the same thing over and over again, what do we get? We get more of the same. But if we have a sense of direction of where we want to take our lives, what we want our lives to stand for, then that is something that, you know, we can imbue more meaning into our lives and have a sense of purpose. And I think we can, with a better sense of purpose, we can make sure that our life feels more meaningful. We have better emotional well-being for ourselves. We have a sense of what our true north, our Polaris, if you like, is. So we can always relate to where we're going, where we're headed to. Bigger decisions become easier to make because if you have a sense of what your purpose is, then things that don't align are going to be brushed away quite naturally. And also, you'll feel more connected to who you are. That's the benefit, some of the benefits anyway, of having purpose. I was going to give you some time to do a purpose exercise, but maybe I'll introduce this as for some homework if you like to do this. So, you know, if you look at memorable moments in your life, what are your key values? So for me, a key value is mastery, right? I've shared that, that's no secret. Another value of mine is integrity. Another value of mine is creativity. And if I look back at recent times where I've lived those values, how did it make me feel? And then moving forward, how would I want to have my life imbued with those values that are important to me? To you, it may be other values, right? It may be love, it may be beauty, it may be service, whatever it is. And I think that's by exploring those ideas or those values that then you can start having more a sense of purpose and direction in your life. So in summary, you know, I presented my blueprint a blueprint for personal mastery, starting off with self-awareness. And there are these components here of self-confidence and purpose among the all other aspects of personal mastery. These can all be developed with intention, with sustained effort. And as well, personal mastery is not a destination. It is a continual practice. And is it an ideal? Well, I like to say no. I like to think that this is something that we keep striving to. Maybe there is an ideal. Maybe an ideal is actually meaningless, but we strive to improve on one little aspect of our lives, of our personal mastery, each and every day. So how was it for you today? What has been one key take-home point for you today? And what would you be doing differently after today's webinar? Some thoughts there. I'd like to share in the chat. Be great. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. Continue that journey of self-awareness. Yes. Something that's rings very true for me too. Okay. So what's next? Well, today was the first webinar I held, and the next one will be on the 7th of June. Same time of day, and I'll be focusing on self-awareness to start with, because I think it's an important component, as I said, of personal mastery. And I invite you as well, if you are you have ambitions, you want to improve, you want to get a greater degree of personal mastery in your life, in your work, or in personal life, in whatever, then I invite you to reach out to me for a strategy call for about an hour or so, when we explore what is missing, what needs to be, what you want to actually rectify. And as well, we can explore if coaching is the right support for you and how that can then look like. So that is really for today. I invite you to connect with me if you haven't already. In my email address, which came with the emails that you received and the calendar invites, but it's my website, jungpersonalmastery.com. If you haven't already, you can follow me on LinkedIn and also the other social media platforms. And I thank you for showing up today. In fact, I would say showing up for yourselves, for your initial steps into what I hope is important for you, incredibly important, of personal mastery. And I like to say thank you. And if you want to work with me, reach out to me, connect with me. I'd be more than happy to continue the conversation. So thank you for bearing with me as I handle those little technical glitches. Despite whatever I tried to do to mitigate it, anyway, these things happen. So thank you very much, and I wish you all the best in your journey of personal mastery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, June.
Thank you.
Congratulations for holding your first one. Great job.
Thank you, Annie.
Yes.
Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.
And you.
And it's recorded as well, I should say. So this will be recorded. It's recorded, and I'll share the links in case you want to. Well, you can look at it at your own leisure as well. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, June.
Bye.